Hello. So, welcome to today's live discussion. This time for episode 9 of series 11, It Takes You Away. I'm really excited to discuss this one because a lot happened. Um, and I've done my usual list of good and bad things, so we have a lot to discuss. I was hoping that the video would be flipped to mirror, there we go, pardon the pun, mirror the actual episode, but sadly I'm the right way round. Oh well, I can't really do much about that. But hello. So, as per usual, message away your thoughts on the episode. I'm particularly interested to know what you guys make of this particular episode, because from what I've read on Twitter, it's quite divisive. Quite a few people loved it, but then a lot of people disliked it as well. So yeah, let me know. And as usual, we should have the poll questions up there. I've completely forgotten what questions I've set up. I was meant to change them actually before doing this live stream, but I ran out of time for that. So it's whatever I set them up to be last week when I made this live stream. But yes, so while you're doing that, I'm going to quickly hide the chat. I'm going to hide my ugly face from my laptop, and I'm going to attempt to summarise the episode. And it's weird. I've got so much to say, and I just don't know where to begin, to be honest. So in a nutshell, I liked it. I liked it a lot more than last week's episode, The Witchfinders. A lot happened in this story. In a way, you've got 3 stories going on in this one episode. You've got what we thought the episode would be about, with the Doctor and her friends being in Norway, and there's this cottage that's all boarded up, and this creature that's lurking in the woods. That's the episode we thought we were going to get. Then halfway through, the Doctor, Yaz, and Graham go through the mirror, and we get this, middle act where they're all in this, I can't remember the name, anti-time place, I don't know. And you've got the moth creatures, and you've got Ribbons, the alien, and then the final act is all in this mirror universe. So yeah, there was a lot going on, but I really enjoyed it. I'm just going to say this now. I was going to build up to it, but it's at the top of my head, and I literally can't think of anything else until I say this point. But what I find really exciting about this episode is how they used an idea that I've had for quite a while now. The whole thing to do with mirrors and there being a mirror universe. This is an idea that I've been sat on for at least a year now. Obviously, they didn't copy me. They had no way of knowing that I had this idea. And to be fair, they did it a lot differently from what my half-baked idea was. But, yeah, as soon as the Doctor went upstairs and saw the mirror... Oh, no, sorry, it was before that. When Graham and Ryan went up to the mirror and didn't see their reflections, I started to get really excited because I sort of guessed at this point that they may go down a similar route to my idea. And in fact, like, when I say I've had this idea, it is literally an idea. I never wrote a script. I was always saving it for a potential fan film that I might make. And I think it was in one of these live streams that one of you guys asked what my mirror idea for fan films was. Well, it was that. It was going to be a mirror universe. And actually, come to think of it, I would have filmed it just like Doctor Who did, having everyone be flipped images. I thought that was a genius idea, by the way. But yeah, sorry if it seems like I'm rambling. It's just I'm very excited to talk about this. because it's not every day that Doctor Who uses an idea that I've had. But no, so we had that scene. They weren't in the reflections, and that was exactly like an idea I had. I thought the characters in the fan film or whatever I was eventually going to write, I thought they would go up to the mirror, not see their reflection, and then suddenly a mirror version of them would appear, and that would be like the pre-titles tease. Yeah, as I keep saying, this is all just ideas. I never put pen on paper for this. But yeah, anyway, to cut out all the waffle, I essentially, at that moment, I was like, oh, they may go down my idea. And then sure enough, when the Doctor, Yaz and Graham come out to the other end of the mirror and suddenly everything's flipped, I was like, that's my idea right there. And from then on, I was just so excited to see how similar the episode was going to be. But anyway, I don't want to bore you with that anymore. I'll gladly talk about it if any of you guys have any questions or if I haven't explained anything well enough, which I probably haven't. But yeah, so that's the main thing I took away from this episode. I just loved how they had this mirror universe, just like what was in my head. But then having said that, and this is one of my dislikes actually, although I can't really call it a dislike, but anyway, I would have liked to have seen mirror versions of the characters in the show. So like a mirror Doctor, mirror Yaz. Yes, we got a mirror Grace, but it's not the same. That was bringing characters back from the dead instead, and that was the sentient universe making projections almost to entice everyone into this parallel universe. Whereas my idea was more about this, the whole universe is copied essentially. So just like you've got the mirror version of Norway in the episode, you would have mirror versions of every character as well. And I think I would have liked the episode to do something with that, seeing as that's something I already started to formulate in my fan film. I was just seeing how long I've been waffling on for. 7 minutes, it's fine. Allow me to talk for, let's say, 2.5 more minutes, and then I'll get into your comments. Yeah, so enough of that mirror idea. I mentioned the twists and turns. A lot of the time I didn't know what route the episode was going to take. Like I said earlier, we all went into the episode thinking it was going to be about a creature attacking a cottage in Norway, and then it ended up being this trek through caves and there being flesh-eating moths and this weird alien with a lantern, and then it ended up being this mirror universe episode and it being about Graham having to let Grace go again. That's another thing I really liked. Didn't know Grace was coming back, so that was a nice surprise. Bradley Walsh was fantastic in his acting in this episode. I loved the ending scene where Ryan finally calls Graham Grandad. I thought that was really sweet. The frog. Oh god, the frog. No doubt we'll be talking about that quite a lot in this video. But yes, at this moment in time, I think it's completely ridiculous that we had a talking frog at the end, but I loved it all the same. It's weird. Usually I hate stupid things like this, but I just thought it was hilarious. But having said that, this is also something I disliked. I didn't feel like it made sense as to why the universe took on the form of a frog. I felt like it should have been maybe something the Doctor could relate to instead. I know that then gets into fan service, but I think I'd rather that than this random frog that was only there because it was something Grace likes. I felt like that was a bit weird. And also, I thought the effects were quite dodgy on the frog as well. So I didn't really rate that. What else did I like? Oh, and then the other thing I've got on my like list is that I appreciate how the episode featured a blind actor. It's always good for Doctor Who to be very diverse and include people regardless of gender, race, disability. Yeah, so I think, I may be wrong in this, but I think this is the first episode that's had a blind actor, which is quite bad that it's taken them 55 years to do this. But I don't think many shows do hire blind actors. So I like to think that Doctor Who is pioneering in this. But yeah, no, I really appreciated it all the same. Even though I liked the episode and will vote accordingly in the polls up there in a second, for some reason there was a lot of things I disliked as well. When typing my list, I somehow ended up with... Actually, to be fair, it is quite an even split, but I have got more dislikes than likes. So I think I mentioned earlier, I felt like there were too many ideas crammed into one episode. I also felt like there should have been more of a focus on Graham and Grace than what we got. Because if I recall correctly, Grace only appeared at the midway point. And I think if it was me, to really hammer home how the episode is about Graham having to let Grace go again, I would have had Grace appear a lot sooner in the episode, so they could have had more scenes together. I'm still disappointed that we haven't had any decent villains, really, in recent weeks, or in fact the whole series. Yes, we had the flesh-eating moths, which is a terrifying concept, to be eaten alive by them. But the fact is, they hardly appeared in the episode. They were only in like 7 minutes in the middle of the episode. I mentioned the frog, how it shouldn't have taken that form. I also think this is more my fault than the episode's, but I think I overhyped the episode because I'm not sure about you guys, but beforehand I read this very good review of the episode on Doctor Who TV, a website, and it was basically saying, make sure you watch this episode live, it's really good, everyone's going to be talking about it, it does something completely different to all the other episodes, and it's one you won't want to miss. And so that got me really hyped for the episode, and I think in my head I got it so hyped up that it was never going to be better than my expectations. So that made the episode not as good in my eyes. Again, this is another minor point, but I feel like there was potentially a really good story there with the boarded up cottage in Norway that's been attacked by a creature. So I feel like it was a waste that the episode wasn't actually about that and how the creature was all made up by the dad. I feel like that's a waste of potential, but that's just a minor point. This is more of a question than a dislike, but was it ever explained why the dad abandoned Hannah? Let me know in the chat, because I have no idea. Yeah, to me it just seemed like he was being selfish and just left her there on her own because he wanted to spend more time with his dead wife. I didn't really get that. Final few points now, so I will be getting into the chat in a second. I felt like Hannah's actor was quite bad, to be honest. Yeah, just thought it was quite weak. And the final thing is another question. Was it ever explained how the alien, Ribbons, got into the anti-zone? Because again, maybe I missed something, but to me it just felt like he was there without it being explained how he arrived there. Because bearing in mind, I think the episode explains that the anti-zone is the space between realities, and theoretically nothing should be able to live there. So I don't really get how the moths are there, and I certainly don't get how Ribbons, if that's even his name, I don't get how he's there either. But there we go. So that's my summary of the episode, summed up in almost exactly 15 minutes. So hopefully that was quite succinct and not too boring. So if any of you guys have recently joined, we've got the usual poll questions up there. So please do vote in them, because I love seeing how you compare episodes to the rest of Series 11. I'm going to do that now. And actually I'm going to discover what the questions are with you guys, because I genuinely don't remember what half of these questions are. So the first one is the same as usual. How would you rate the episode? This one is quite easy to answer. I really liked it, but not enough to love it, I think. At least not on my first viewing. So my answer to that is I liked it. The second question, which non-Chibnall story is your favourite? As per usual, it's Rosa. Long-time viewers of these live discussions will know that Rosa is one of a few episodes to make me cry, and it's also the only episode this series where I felt like everything was perfect and nothing was wrong with it. So, without a shadow of a doubt, for me, the answer is Rosa for that one. Which Series 11 present-day story is the best? And the choices are The One Who Fell to Earth, Arachnids in the UK, and It Takes You Away. This one's a bit more difficult to answer. For me, it's either The Woman Who Fell to Earth or It Takes You Away. And I think at the moment... Oh, I'm struggling with this one. I will say... It Takes You Away. I think I enjoyed tonight's episode just a bit more than the series opener. And the final question, which of the following episode 9s are your favourite? The choices are Night Terrors, Hyde, Flatline, Empress of Mars, and It Takes You Away. Another no-brainer for me. I adore Flatline. I think it's a beautiful episode with a brilliant concept. Really good monsters as well. Very well written, very enjoyable, very scary. So I don't even need to think much about this one. For me, my choice is Flatline for that episode. I'm so excited that I'm talking really quickly. And it'll be interesting to compare this video to previous ones, because I feel like I'm talking a lot faster than I usually do. But it's what I do when I'm excited. And yeah, I know I've just listed off a bunch of dislikes for the episode, but I did have a lot of fun with this episode, and I think it's more the fact that they implemented my idea. I say my idea, as I mentioned earlier, they had no way of knowing that I had thought this up, but I just mean it's nice that there's similarities between my idea and the mirror universe we got in the episode. And it just means I don't have to make this fan film anymore. Right, let's go to the beginning. Dash Maniac, I just finished watching the episode and I'm just going to go and say it. This is one of my least favourite Doctor Who episodes ever. The frog should have kept its mouth shut, but still speak. The episode was boring, and it felt like there wasn't a real threat. Well, that's a shame that it's one of your least favourite episodes ever, because I thought it was quite good myself. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the frog was a bit weird. And I think one of my issues with it was how I don't think its mouth moved. No, definitely. Its mouth did not move in time with what Grace was saying. And you could tell it was an animatronic, if that's the right term for it. Yeah, so that was a bit weird. I didn't think the episode was boring, though. If anything, I thought last week's was boring. This one had so many twists and turns. And again, I think it was the whole thing with mirrors that kept me on the edge of my seat, because I wanted to see how similar it would be to my idea. But you're right in saying there wasn't really a real threat. Yeah, I do agree there. Yes, we had the moths, but as I mentioned earlier, they hardly appeared. Tia Martin liked the episode. Curious to know if you've given this week's episode, if you would have given this week's episode some other title besides It Takes You Away. Yeah, I would have done, to be honest. I did think about that earlier. I did think, again, it's similar to how it's a bit gutting that we didn't get this story about a house being attacked in Norway, because I think there's a really good story there. It's a waste of an episode title, because ultimately there was no creature taking people away. Yes, we had this mirror universe that took Hannah's dad away, but it didn't really, because he chose to be there. Yeah, so God knows what I would have called it instead, but I would not have called it It Takes You Away. Alex Allen, hi, I am Green Emeralds by the way. Oh, okay, so you've changed your name. I have never been so mixed about an episode before. Parts of it were incredible, but other parts, such as the frog, were just terrible. I can see where you're coming from, to be honest. Yeah, so I knew the frog would come up in discussion because it's such a weird idea. And it's crazy to think now, when we all saw the Doctor Who Series 11 trailer that had the scene right at the end where the Doctor blows a kiss whilst walking away, there was all those theories as to if it was a companion that she was talking to, or, I don't know, some character from previous series or the classic series, and we all thought it was someone who was going to die, and it ended up being a talking frog, which is bloody weird, but hilarious. But yeah, it is a bit of a mixed one. But like I said, I liked it. But I'm glad that you find parts of the episode incredible, at least, because there were some very good moments in the episode. Ewan Hoyle, NZ, hate Series 11, and they feel like it's a spin-off show. Fair enough. Yeah, not everyone's going to like Series 11. I personally think, for the most part, it's good. And it does seem a lot of the time that I'm one of the few people that's actually enjoying it. Because particularly this last week, I've seen so many videos that have been criticising Series 11, which is a shame, really, because, I don't know, Doctor Who's my favourite show, and yeah, it's fine to not like every episode and to find some series worse than the others, but it is just a bit of a shame to see so many videos slagging the series off. But I don't watch them, so it doesn't really affect my day. Ewan Halkrow, quite enjoyed the episode. Nothing particularly memorable, but a decent 50-minute watch. I'm glad you enjoyed it, at least. Dave H has given another comment regarding the frog. I liked the episode until we saw the frog, which ruined the episode. Instead of the frog, why didn't they use a bright white light? Good point. Yeah. Well, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, really. I just don't get why it had to be a frog. I know the episode tried to explain it as being Grace's favourite animal or some rubbish like that. But for me, and it's stupid of me to say this because we are talking about a sentient universe after all, but I felt like it was out of character for the universe to manifest itself as a frog. When it manifested itself as Grace and Trina, I think the dad's dead wife was called, that made sense because that was done to entice the characters to stay in that universe. But by this point, they'd all gone, the universe was crumbling apart, the Doctor had said that she's going to stay in this universe, and suddenly the universe decides to become a frog on a chair, and everything else has become this whole white zone, and you've just got this random animatronic frog. But I found it hilarious, so I am giving it some leeway because it is one of the rare times that I've actually laughed out loud at an episode. usually all my laughter is inward. I'm very British in that way, in that I don't really show my emotions. But with this, I was so surprised that I actually lolled out loud. I know you can't say that because that's laugh out loud, out loud. I lolled. There we go. Elliot Bray, bloody loved this episode. Weird and clever, and so Doctor Who. Glad to hear it. Dash Maniac really wants to vote for Hyde and Flatline, and they can't choose which one. Well, I'm afraid you have to, if you want to vote in the poll question, that is. Obviously, you don't have to, but I'd appreciate it if you did. But yeah, no, I do understand. If there's 2 episodes you really like, it can be quite difficult to pick which one's better. But I don't know. That's something you'll have to decide yourself. Wally, 35. I have to agree. I've not had the Doctor Who vibe all season. To me, it just feels like sci-fi of the week. Fair enough. I personally don't believe that myself, but to each their own. T.M. Martin, Dr. Blue, the Doctor said she had 7 grandmothers. Is it possible that all 7 Nans were the Doctor's blood relatives and that by extension the Doctor might somehow have more than one biological mother? Good question. Yeah, it is entirely possible. To be honest, I wasn't really a fan of... I know it's throwaway dialogue, but I don't like the idea of the Doctor having 7 grandmothers. I just think it's a bit of a stupid thing to have in the script. So I didn't really pay much attention to that, to be honest. And I just more focused on the exposition she was giving. But it is possible for the Doctor to have multiple parents. Though personally, I wouldn't like that. Yeah, no, it feels too weird for me. Dave H. was disappointed it was another episode set on Earth. I want to see new worlds. Good point. Though you could argue that this was a different world because we got the mirror world, which, okay, it looked like Earth, but it was effectively an entirely different universe. So, in that regard, I am letting this episode off. It's not like last week where England-based and Earth-based. Yeah, I've completely lost where I was going with that point now. Oh, what I was also going to mention is obviously next week, the series finale, that's set on an alien planet, so hopefully you'll be happy with that. Dash Maniac was anticipating... Oh, don't know what happened there. Was anticipating a blind person on Doctor Who since the deaf woman in Series 9, Episodes 3 and 4. Yeah, good point. So, I think the character was called Cass, and the story you're referring to is Before the Flood and Under the Lake. Yeah, a very good episode, by the way. Though that's not strictly relevant. Yeah, so that did seem to be paving the way for a blind actor to appear, and it's nice that we finally had that. Tia Martin. Dr. Blue, does Graham nip to the TARDIS kitchens before every single adventure to fix a fresh cheese and pickle sandwich? Or has he been carrying the same butty around in his pocket for ages? I like both of those ideas, to be honest. Although I am more drawn to the first one. Because the amount of adventures they've all been on, and assuming Graham gets hungry in every single one of these, I think he would always have to have a sandwich ready. So I love the idea of him quickly nipping off to the kitchen, making his sandwich, and then going off on his adventure. And also it means we can pretend he's had a sandwich in every episode prior to this. So ever since Rosa, where I think it was in that episode that he said he was really hungry, but they had no time to eat. I like to think since that episode, he's been making sandwiches. Dash Maniac thinks the title was misleading. No one was taken. Yep, just like I was saying. Dash Maniac was also disappointed that the roaring came from a speaker. Yeah, it was a good plot twist, but like I said earlier, I do feel like a really good story was there. I'm a sucker for Base Under Siege, so I would have loved this whole episode of the Doctor and everyone being trapped in this cottage with this creature clawing its way through the boarded up panels and all that. I would have loved to have seen an episode like that. But having said that, I'm quite happy with the episode we got. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, send in a script to the BBC. Others have and they've gotten produced. Good idea. I would do that, but I've never written a script before. So no doubt my first script would be awful and would be rejected straight away. And also, what is quite annoying, now that Doctor Who has used my idea, is they're unlikely to commission an episode like this, because they'll just look at it and go, well, you've just copied It Takes You Away. And then I'll have to say, no, I've had this episode idea for a long time now, and I'll do it differently this way and this way, but they'll have none of it. And so my poor script will be rejected. But it's a nice thought. I would like to write for Doctor Who. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, will we find out who or what the Timeless Child is in the Series 11 finale? I certainly hope so. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really intrigued to find out what it is. And I think it would be a waste if after all this time, I was going to say build up then, but there hasn't really been build up. It was only mentioned in one episode, and that was episode 2, and then never brought up again. But I just mean after all these weeks of speculating, it would be quite frustrating to not find out what the Timeless Child is. And I really want to see if it is my theory, which is that it's a secret sibling of the Doctor. Elliot Bray, I think that the universe couldn't interpret anything the Doctor wanted or loved about her universe. The frog was its answer for some reason, loved it anyway. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's plausible. Yeah, that's all I can say to that, really. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, will the sentient universe represented by the talking frog in the episode be as polarising with the fandom as the moon being an egg in Kill the Moon? Interesting. Well, time will tell with that. It's only, 2 hours since the episode was on, so it's very early days to see just how controversial this bloody frog will be. But for me at least, as I've mentioned several times now, I thought the frog was hilarious. I don't have that much of a problem with it, although I do have minor quibbles. And to be honest, I had more of an issue with the moon being an egg. I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous that the moon creature, God knows what it was, but it's the fact that... So, right, let me just clarify. Quick detour into Kill the Moon here. I didn't so much mind that the moon was an egg. What got me was how when the moon breaks open and this flying creature comes out of it, it lays an egg that is bigger than itself. And that's the new moon. And I don't get it. I like Kill the Moon as an episode. I know loads of people hate it. And I think it's in a lot of people's top 5 worst episodes lists. I don't hate the episode. I just hate that moment. But anyway, enough about Kill the Moon. Philip Hawkins, Frog Grace, brilliant. We're going to call the frog that from now on. Was the worst part of an otherwise good episode. As well as being just bad in its own right, The frog was missed opportunity. Could have been someone relevant to the Doctor. Susan, perhaps. Yeah, so Philip, you're linking in nicely to what loads of other people are saying. Yeah, the frog was weird. It was a weird addition to the episode. It did jar how it was an animatronic that didn't move in time with Grace's words, and for me at least, that took me out of the episode. And yeah, just like you, I would have much rather the universe have taken on a form that meant something to the Doctor, rather than this random frog that is Grace's favourite animal, or some rubbish like that. Jesus, have I been going for that long already? Wow. Well, it shows I'm enjoying this then. Thank you, as ever, guys, for all your messages. Keep firing away. Respond to what I'm saying. Mention more things about the episode if anything is jogged in your brains. And of course, vote in the polls up in that corner if you haven't already done so. I'll be checking through them very soon. Dashmaniac thought the series couldn't have gotten worse since the Shiranga conundrum, so this episode gave me a surprise. Wow. Any long-time viewers of these live discussions will know that my least favourite episode of the series so far is the Shiranga conundrum. And not only is it my least favourite, but it's one that I actively dislike. And not many episodes have that privilege. A lot of them are just, I find, not as good as the others. I don't outright dislike them or hate them. So yeah, it's quite a privilege that the Shiranga conundrum is in my list for that. But yeah, to be honest, Dashmaniac, I'm surprised you felt tonight's episode was worse than the Shiranga conundrum, because I felt like this episode had a lot more going for it, whereas the Shiranga conundrum was just so boring and pointless, in my opinion. Dave H. At the start of the series, I didn't like how the episode starts straight after the title sequence, but I like it now because it feels like the title sequence is the TARDIS landing on the planet to start. Nice idea, and I hadn't thought of that myself. And yeah, for several weeks, I didn't know where I stood with that either. And I must admit, even now, I do still miss the pre-titles teaser. But at the same time, I appreciate that Series 11 is doing something different, beginning every episode with the title sequence. And also it's nice because it now signals the start of the adventure. And when you hear the theme tune, you now know, right, Doctor Who's on. I've got to sit down in front of the TV, and this is what I'm watching for the next 50 minutes. But yeah, it's an interesting thought that it also signals the TARDIS landing. I quite like that. Tia Martin, this episode at first reminded me of the British-made Scandi horror flick The Ritual that starred Sam Troughton, who coincidentally is the grandson of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. You always come up with such interesting facts, Tia Martin. Thank you for that. It's always makes these streams interesting. I haven't seen it myself. I'll have to look into that actually, because unless there's two films called The Ritual, I feel like that's the one that came out last year, and it was a horror that was set in the woods, and it was about 4 British men, and God knows what happens because I've yet to see it, but it's a film I wanted to see at least, so it'll be interesting if we're on about the same film here. Casey Link, it's funny how confusing watching this can be when I haven't watched any of the past 5 odd episodes. I wouldn't say it's confusing though, because every episode this year is standalone, and really, with this episode at least, there wasn't many callbacks to previous episodes. We had the links to Grace's death in the series opener, and Rosa. Any others? not that I can think of. But they were all just throwaway mentions. So really, you only needed to see the series opener to know that Grace was dead, to know who the companions are, to know what the Doctor's like, and yeah, really, you could get away with not watching Doctor Who for 7 weeks, coming back to this episode, and you would more or less be able to follow it, I find. Elliot Bray thought of Coraline in this episode, which is always a good thing. Yeah, I've seen Coraline, and it's a very dark film, but I do enjoy it. And yeah, now that you mention it, I do see the links. It took me a while to realise why this episode reminded you of Coraline, but it's the whole going into a parallel universe. Yeah, I completely forgot that. Tian Martin, Dr. Blue, what do you think of Ribbon's look? Was that good makeup or too Star Trek-ish? I thought it was good. I must admit, I have not seen Star Trek myself, so I wouldn't care if it was Star Trek-ish, as you mentioned. Yeah, I think really my problem more is just how often Doctor Who does humanoid-looking aliens. I know they do that because it's easy to just get a human actor and cover them in prosthetics and makeup, but I think I'm at the point now, having been a Doctor Who fan for over 10 years and having seen, God, I dread to think how many episodes I've watched now. It's easily over 100. But yeah, I'm starting to get quite tired of seeing the humanoid aliens. But having said that, I would much rather creatures like Ribbons, where they look alien at least, than what we got in the Shiranga Conundrum and the Ghost Monument, where they're aliens that look human, basically the Doctor. I'm fine with the Doctor being an alien that looks human, but any others, it's just one too many, I think, and it's just laziness, because all you're doing is you're casting a normal actor and saying, right, play this role as a human, but you've got dialogue here to suggest you're an alien, and words aren't really enough, at least not for me, to believe that someone is a different race. Andrew Christie really enjoyed this episode. Glad to know. Be sure to vote in the poll if you did really like it, because then that will make the percentage of likes go up. Andrew Christie also asks any thoughts on the finale. No, to be honest. Sorry to give such a boring answer, but I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm praying it's going to be a good episode at least, although the jury's still out on that one because it is written by Chris Chibnall, after all, who hasn't written that many good episodes this series. But I'm intrigued, at least. I think it's going to be a very action-orientated episode. I don't think any companions will die, purely based on that promotional picture we got of the New Year's Day special. So that diminishes my excitement somewhat, just because there's not really going to be that many stakes. I'm intrigued to see if we do find out what the Timeless Child is. Like I mentioned earlier, I really hope we do, because otherwise we'll have to wait for Series 12 or the New Year's Day special. But no, that's it really. I'm just looking forward to the episode. Elliot Bray. The voice the Doctor recognises in the next episode is probably only going to be the woman from the Ghost Monument or something. I don't know how to respond to that really. To be honest, I'm surprised that you think it's going to be the woman from the Ghost Monument, because surely, if anything, it's going to be Tim Shaw, because loads of people, myself included, believe that Tim Shaw will return in the finale and he'll be like the series big bad, even though he's not the most threatening villain. He's still okay, but I digress. But yeah, no, I'm curious to know why you think it's the woman from the Ghost Monument who'll come back. Katie Link, you can make my fan film. Thank you very much. Tia Martin. God, I'm 25 minutes behind. Bear with. Just want a drink. I liked this episode because it represented a real return to sci-fi with horror elements, even though the villain was a bit of a wash. Ribbons and the Moths made up for it, rated it a 9 out of 10. Oh, nice. So you really enjoyed the episode then? Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you've said there. There wasn't really much of a villain. To be honest, I don't really know what a wash means, but I'll go with it anyway. But yeah, I thought there was a lot of clever ideas in the episode, and I really enjoyed it. Dash Maniac is not talking to me, so I'll move on from that one. Jack Parry, sorry I'm a bit late. Thought it was an alright episode, probably second best behind Rosa. Enjoyed that it wasn't a simple monster of the week, but the frog, ... Why a frog? Angry face. Ruined the end a bit for me. Yeah, I think, again, your message is another one that I quite agree with. I still don't know where I would rate it. All I know is it's behind Rosa, just like all the episodes in this series, because I love Rosa so much. Could it be second on my list? No, I'm going to be harsh. And at this moment in time, no doubt it will change once I rewatch all the episodes again. But at this moment in time, I think this episode is my number 3, I think. I think for me, if you had to pin me down right now and say, what's your favourite 3 episodes? I would say Rosa, Kablam, and then tonight's episode. Then closely followed by Demons on the Punjab, of the Punjab. And the only thing that lets that episode down, really, is the acting of Prem and his brother. Because since the episode has aired, I have realised that they're not the best at acting. And that does ruin my enjoyment somewhat. But yeah, I do have a funny feeling. Kablam, Demons of the Punjab, and It Takes You Away will keep swapping around in my list in the weeks, months and years to come. Dave H, every time you mention the frog, it just makes me laugh from remembering it. Yeah, well, as I keep saying, even I laughed seeing it for the first time because it was so bloody unexpected. Just this frog with a mouth that moves, not in time. It's weird. RJH Productions thinks Series 11 is fantastic. Great to know. Jack Parry. Also, the Doctor keeps using the Sonic as a wand. She even pointed it at the guy in the anti-zone as if it was a gun. Yeah, I noticed that as well. And I think, to be honest, well, other people have mentioned the Doctor using the Sonic as a wand before. And that I don't so much have a problem with. No, I don't mind if she holds it like a wand and brandishes it like a wand. Because I notice she always does an arm movement like that. I don't know why. But yeah, I think this episode, what I didn't like was, as you mentioned, how she points it in Ribbon's face like a weapon when all it works with is technology, really. RJ Hates Productions thought this episode was possibly one of the most original concepts I've ever seen. It's the only time a Doctor Who story really confused me. Wow. That's quite an achievement then of the episode. See, I would agree with you and call it original, except I've also had that idea for the episode, as I mentioned earlier. So, not quite original for me, but I appreciated how it's the first episode to go down the Mirror Universe route. I know Black Mirror, not Black Mirror, I've been reading the Black Mirror book today, that's why that's in my head. The Curse of the Black Spot, that's what I was meant to say. They did a similar thing, but I say similar, it really wasn't, and actually it quite annoyed me because it must have been then. God, I must have had this idea for years because I've just remembered when I first saw The Curse of the Black Spot, and you have that bit at the end where the doctor and everyone is suddenly on the alien medical ship, and the doctor's looking through this like mirror and seeing the spaceship, no, the pirate ship, and he realizes every mirror is looking through between the universes. I've just remembered, even then, I felt like, oh, well, they've wasted my idea. Because, yeah, it must have been at that point that I also had the idea of the mirror universe. So I've been sitting on this for 7 years. Blimey. Jesus. But anyway, moving on from that, because that is scary to think that I've had the idea for so long and haven't done anything with it. I've just been a lazy sod and had the idea but never written anything with it. Tia Martin would have called the episode Anti-Zone or Solid Tract Attraction. I like that second title, actually. The problem with Anti-Zone is, well, it doesn't so much give away the plot of the episode, but it gives away the appearance of this anti-zone. If it was me writing the episode, I'll have to go away and think about this actually, but I would have made the title something, some pun to do with mirrors, but I would have tried to have done it in a way that it doesn't give away that the episode is about mirrors, if that makes sense. So I would have called it something like Reflection or Perfect Reflection, which coincidentally is the name of my non-existent fan film. Jack Parry, can we talk about the fact that the little girl knocked Ryan out by slamming the door in his face? How did she even know he was there? How is that enough force to render him unconscious? You've put wired there, but I think you meant weird. Well, in terms of how she knew he was there, I think she just listened out for him. She stood behind the door, kept really quiet and listened to hear him come up the stairs and through the doorway, and then she just acted on it. She just used all her force. And yeah, I suppose it is weird that that managed to knock him unconscious. But then having said that, the door, I think, hit him full on in the face. And with enough force, you can knock someone out. So that's all fine to me. Mr. Coffee Bear, who's your favourite Doctor? I've answered this many a time, but I don't mind answering it again. Has to be the 10th Doctor. He's the first Doctor I saw, and I find him the most charismatic and interesting. And I love David Tennant as an actor. Yeah, there's so many reasons why I love him, but yeah, he's my favourite. The Doctor that got me into the show, and the person I aspire to be like. Jack Parry liked that the start showed that Ryan still has angry feelings about his dad, because he assumed that the girl's dad ran away, just like the dad did. Brought out a darker side to him. Very interesting point, which again is something that I did not notice myself. Yeah, that's a good character moment, really. I do appreciate that. And it's Bray. What was the point in the boarding up the windows? If it was to deceive his daughter, she wouldn't be able to see it. True, but I think that was just done to reinforce the idea. Because it's all well and good telling your daughter, you've got to stay in the house, there's a creature coming. But if you don't act on that and actually take precautions to safeguard the premises, it makes it obvious that it's a lie. So I think he just did that to really enforce the lie to Hannah. Geo, I like to think that Graham makes the Doctor take them back to Earth to stock up on sandwich ingredients every other trip. Great idea. I agree with that. RJH Productions thinks that episode 10 looks like a planet under siege. Well, I certainly hope that's the case, because as I mentioned earlier, I love a good base under siege story. Well, as long as it's done well. I'm looking at you, the Shiranga Conundrum. You awful episode. Yeah, so if it's done really well, it'll be a really good finale for me. How far behind am I? Half an hour. Jesus. Well, it's because there's so many lovely comments from all you guys, so thank you very much for giving me a lot to read through. Now I need to find where I've gone. There we go. Right. So as per usual, guys, I will wrap this up at 10:30 UK time. So that gives us 35 more minutes. So there's still plenty of time, but I just thought I'll forewarn you that there's only 35 minutes left. And actually at this point, just because I have briefly come away from the messages, I'm going to see how the polls are doing. Again, usual plug, if you haven't already voted in the polls, do so up there, because it's always interesting to see what you make of the episodes and how you compare them to the rest of Series 11. Okay. So we refresh that. Rightio. Oh, this is juicy. How do you rate It Takes You Away? The winner at the moment is people loving the episode with 45% of the vote. Then it's people liking it with 35%. No one thought it was average, but 10% of people didn't like it and 10% hated it. So at the moment it seems there's a strong liking of the episode, which is nice to see. Which non-Chibnall story is your favourite? I'm quite happy to see that Rosa is winning yet again. It's at 43% of the vote at the moment, but obviously that could change if more people vote in the polls. Second place is Kablam. I'm not surprised, to be honest, because Kablam was a very good episode. Then in third place, it's tonight's episode, It Takes You Away. Then in joint last place, it's The Witchfinders and Demons of the Punjab. The third poll question, which Series 11 present day story is the best? The winner is tonight's episode with 56% of the vote. Then it's The Woman Who Fell to Earth with 37%. Then it's Arachnids in the UK with 6%. And I think that's a fair ranking at the moment. Obviously that could still change, but that's how I would rank them, at least. I think I'd put It Takes You Away first, then the series opener, then Arachnids. Oh, I like the answer to this last question as well. Which episode 9 is your favourite? 37% of people agree with me that Flatline is the best of the bunch. And then second place is tonight's episode. Third place is Hyde, which I wasn't expecting, to be honest. It's an okay episode, but doesn't particularly stand out for me. Then it's Night Terrors with 12%. And then finally, Empress of Mars with 0% of the vote. Again, I'm quite surprised at that. See, for me, I have a weird relationship with Empress of Mars because it's an episode I was really hyped for, but ultimately it let me down. And I still, to this day, can't really establish what I wanted from the episode. But needless to say, what we actually got was not what I wanted. I think I felt like we didn't have enough Ice Warriors, and I didn't like how at the start of the episode, one of the Ice Warriors was helping the humans. Actually, there was a lot about this episode I didn't like. So I'm surprised that it seems, at least from everyone that's voted in the polls, that a lot of you guys agree that it isn't an episode that stands out. Ewan Houtcrow has never heard this stuff about the Timeless Child. Could you, it might just be me, but I have never heard of it. Could you enlighten me? Certainly. So I can understand why you missed it, because it's literally only had the one throwaway mention so far. But basically, at the end of episode 2, The Ghost Monument, when the Doctor and everyone is facing off against those weird ribbon creatures, one of the ribbons mentions the Doctor's fears, because somehow it can read fears. That's never explained. And it mentions a timeless child. And I forget the actual dialogue, but it's generally talking about a fear the Doctor's had since her childhood and how she's hidden it from herself. And that's it, basically. So since then, we've all been speculating as to what the Timeless Child is. And there's been many theories thrown about. We've had rumours that it's Susan. All the other ones have vanished from my head. But Susan is the one that I remember. And my idea, my only idea, actually, is that it's a secret sibling that the Doctor has forgotten that she has. The only problem with it, though, is it's very similar to what Sherlock did. So, you know, it's a copying issue there. But we'll have to wait and see. For all we know, we're reading too much into it. Loads of other people explained as well. Geo, oh god, I was not buying this sentient universe thing, but now you've mentioned the egg moon, I'm fine with a sentient frog universe by comparison. There we go, puts everything in perspective. Doctor Who does have a track record of doing utterly ridiculous things, so it's not unheard of. It's just, I personally think the show is a lot better than this, and it doesn't need to have stupid things like a talking frog and a creature laying an egg that's bigger than itself. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, what did you make of the Solitract presenting as female and the Doctor luring her in with the line, I've lived longer, seen more, loved more and lost more. The Solitract seemed beguiled. All these words that I have no idea what they mean. I feel ashamed. I got an A in English at GCSE. I should know what beguiled means, but I really don't. So what did I make of the Solitract presenting as female and the Doctor luring her in? I thought it was all fine, to be honest. And really, I loved that line you've quoted there, when the Doctor said, I've lived longer, seen more, loved more and lost more. I thought that was a really good Doctor moment. So I quite enjoyed that. And I didn't even notice. I don't think it was a conscious thing that the universe spoke with a female voice. I think that was just more done because it was speaking through Grace, who was at the centre of the episode, really. Elliot Bray thinks this series has really turned around. After Arachnids and the Suranga Conundrum, I was worried it was going to easily be the worst series. It has definitely climbed the ladder. Yeah, I agree. But I like to think I had a bit more optimism. Hopefully one of my live discussions, one of my previous ones, proves this. But I think after the Suranga Conundrum, even though I was very disappointed with how the episode went, I was optimistic for the rest of the series because I knew we would have a run of 4 episodes not written by Chris Chibnall. So I knew at the very least we would get a different flavour to episodes and it wouldn't all be how he writes the show. And yeah, so I'm quite happy because we've had all the episodes not written by him now. So it began with Demons of the Punjab. I mean, in the second half of the series, ignore the fact that Rosa isn't just written by Chris Chibnall. So yeah, we had Demons of the Punjab, Kablam, The Witchfinders, and tonight's episode, and all four of them I've enjoyed. Yes, The Witchfinders I found a bit boring, and I did think it was an average episode. But even that, I did enjoy more than Arachnids, and certainly more than the Saranga Conundrum. Yeah, so this second half is a lot better than the first half, I find. Besides Rosa. No, right, that's unfair of me to say, actually. Because the first half does have some good episodes. I just mean, when you look at Arachnids in the UK and the Saranga Conundrum, these past four episodes are definitely better than that. Dave H, did you think Graham was going to stay with Grace? No, because I know he's in the series finale and the New Year's Day special. So I knew, really, I know I've said earlier this episode was unpredictable and had lots of twists and turns. But I did know Grace was going to appear as soon as, God knows which character said it, but as soon as someone said, oh, as soon as you showed up, someone else appeared, I knew it was going to be Grace. And as soon as I had that confirmed to me, I knew the end of the episode would be Graham deciding that this is not the real Grace and he would go back to the real world. I knew that's what the big climax would be. So, yeah, I never for 1 second thought he would stay. But it was still... I do need to give credit to Bradley Walsh because he did do incredible acting in this episode. And yeah, he just made everything so believable and you really believed his struggle. Elliot Bray, I know it would have been unlikely to be possible, but I feel the best thing the Solitrat could have shown the Doctor would be the human version of the TARDIS from the Doctor's wife. Yeah, that would have been nice to see, but then the actress that played the Doctor's wife, or the TARDIS, she's quite famous, and I think it would cost a lot to bring her back just for this small cameo, but it would have been nice to see in an ideal world. Geo, I think the universe took the frog form as it liked it. If it took the form of something special to the Doctor, it would still be trying to lure her rather than just be friends, right? I suppose so. Yeah, okay, I suppose that's a possible explanation for it. Tia Martin has confirmed that we are on about the same ritual, and they recommend that I should check it out. I certainly will, Tia Martin. But I say I'm quite bad with horror, but actually in recent years I've watched quite a few horrors, so I'll get round to it eventually, but I'm certainly not going to watch it tonight because, no, I'll be too scared to go to bed. Selena, it seemed in the Next Time trailer that the Doctor will help this war by carrying a backpack and some kind of implant. I also believe an unknown time lady will appear in this episode. Interesting. We'll have to see if you're right. Angel of Rock was very disappointed that there was no giant, dangerous and scary creature. All the build-up to only be sound effects from the speaker. Yeah, I did mention this earlier. I did feel like there was a very good episode to be had out of what we got in the first 15 minutes. So it is disappointing that we never got that story. Who knows? They may do something similar in future series. But for now, at least, I'm also a bit disappointed that we didn't get this creature. But then, having said that, I appreciated the twists. I appreciated how the episode was not what we expected at all. Yeah. Right, I think at this point, guys, I'm going to have to start going through the messages a bit quicker, just so that I can try and get through as many of them as possible. Another reminder, 20 minutes roughly until I wrap up. So vote in the polls if you haven't already done so. Message away your thoughts of the episode or anything else that you want to be discussed. Selena asks if I have any thoughts on why the Solitract turned into a white triangular corridor for the Doctor. I have no idea, to be honest. I think really that was just more a visual choice for the audience, because it does seem whenever... Oh, I'm really struggling to put this into words, but whenever you have... Okay, let's say whenever you have a universe that's falling apart, just like in this episode, or a world that's gone back to basics, what generally the audience sees at this point is this white area to symbolise how there's nothing else in this universe, it's just the characters that are there. Another example, because I've watched this recently, is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. When Harry dies and he goes into like purgatory, yes, he's in King's Cross Station, but it is just essentially a whole white area that him and Dumbledore are speaking in. And yeah, it's just a visual cue to show that it's not quite reality. Yeah, I don't know, I'm waffling now. I'm trying to be clever about this, but epically failing. But no, I just think... I don't think there was anything story-wise to explain it. I think it was more a behind-the-scenes thing to make it obvious to the audience that this world was sort of empty at this point, or being brought back to basics. Elliot Bray, have you seen the picture with the cast posing with a trickster slash slender man looking creature for this episode? Yet it seems to have been completely cut. I have not. And I'll have a look at that after this live stream. I don't want to do it now because it will detract from all your messages. That is a shame if it has been cut, because I love seeing alien creatures. Especially if they look like the Trickster or Slender Man. That must be terrifying. Jack Parry, the problem with this series is that the good episodes in this season would be bang average if they were in another season. Our expectations have been lowered, so episodes like this and Kablam appear better than what they are. It's an interesting point. I don't know if I agree with you, to be honest. In fact, I don't really know where I stand with that comment. I mean, we can't deny they're good episodes, but then I do suppose you may be right there in saying that they stand out a lot more than they would have done. But then having said that, I do think Rosa would have stood out no matter what series it was in, just because it was unlike all the other historicals. How we had a pop song playing at the end, how we didn't have end credits music, which is a very rare thing for the show, how the Doctor ultimately did nothing, again rare. Yeah, so I think Rosa definitely would have stood out. But yeah, I suppose episodes like this one and Kablam, maybe they wouldn't have done in any other series. Tim Martin heard that the frog on the white chair was actually CGI and not animatronic. Anyone else heard that? Does that impact your opinion on the lips not matching my dialogue? It does actually, because if it is CGI, that really makes me wonder why they didn't put the effects in to make it move its mouth in time with what Grace was saying. I must admit, I still believe it's animatronic. Until I see a source proving otherwise, I will believe it's an animatronic little frog. That must have been weird to have on set, if it was actually there. But yeah, I don't see... If it was CGI, I don't get why they would deliberately just have its mouth moving like that. Right, sorry, I'm just trying to find messages I can respond to because I am about 25 minutes behind after all. Colby thinks people are missing the point about the frog. Why not a frog, they say. It's just the kind of thing Douglas Adams would have written. Fair point, but for me, I just think it's quite a jarring moment because by this point you've had an episode which, okay, it's hardly realistic, but the things that happen are somewhat plausible, and then just suddenly you have this talking frog, and it's just such a surprising moment that I do think it annoyed quite a few people. But like I said earlier, I was fine with it. I thought it was hilarious. But I just had a problem with the form, really. I would have rather it have been a different character or creature. Actually, no, not another creature. That would have been strange. Can't be doing with that. Jack Parry, have you found any mystery boxes? A reoccurring thing throughout the series, e.g. the cracks in time and Rose appearing in series 4 in this season so far. Maybe Tim Shaw. No, I haven't really. It's not essential for a series to have a series arc, although I do think it helps. So it is a bit gutting that there hasn't really been anything to reward the long-time viewers. Really, I think the only series arc is Tim Shaw possibly returning, because the Stenza have been mentioned in 2 episodes, episode 1 and 2, or both, or / and I should say, the Timeless Child, because it seems that's leading somewhere, even though it's only appeared in 1 episode. But yeah, besides that, I don't think there's been anything else. Oh God, my eyes are going. That's a sign that I'm getting tired. Right. Quick drink. Don't forget the polls, guys, if you've recently joined or have yet to vote. Dave H, what do you think about the new scarf? I really like it. I love how colourful it is. I really think it suits Jodie's doctor as well. I like how it's not... Yes, it's similar to Tom Baker's scarf, but I like how it is different enough to not be classed as them copying the Tom Baker doctor. Yeah, so I really like it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, what did you make of the Doctor eating Norwegian weeds and soil to decipher where they were? How come she's not relying more on the TARDIS controls? Is 13 still trying to get the hang of it? I thought it was a funny moment, to be honest. And as far as I'm aware, it's not the first time the Doctor has done something like this. I mean, at the top of my head, the 10th Doctor has eaten sand before. And blood, I think he did as well. I forget the episode he did that in, but I swear, yeah, his very first episode, A Christmas Carol, no, The Christmas Invasion, he tries the blood on the blood control device. Yes, but it's not the first time the Doctor has used her taste buds to determine where they are or what's happening. So I was fine with it, really. But you're probably right in saying that it could be to do with how she's still not used to using the TARDIS. Philip Hawkins, Graham shares an affinity with Paddington Bear, thereby always having a sandwich with him. No hat to hide it under, like Paddington though. He should have kept hold of it. He should have kept hold of the Witchfinder's hat. Yeah. Oh, that's a nice parallel, that Graham is similar to Paddington Bear. Yeah, I just think that's another funny moment, how we now know that presumably in all the previous adventures, Graham has had a sandwich ready to eat at any moment. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, how would you rate Yaz as a companion after she offered up reverse the polarity? Well, to be honest, that didn't really change my opinion of her. But if you are interested to know what I think of her as a companion, I think she's good, though not as good as the other female companions we've had, mainly because we just don't really know her as much as the other characters. And really that's just a fault that's been brought about because we have so many companions this year. But yeah, no, I like her, but she's definitely the middle companion. My favourite companion is Graham, Yaz is second, and to be perfectly honest, Ryan's at the bottom because I just don't find him that interesting. And really, dare I say it, but I have noticed this with several episodes, and this one included, I don't think Tosin Cole is that very good of an actor, to be honest. Yeah, I just don't get much from him. And the way, how he says lines sometimes, I really struggle to understand what he's saying. Yeah, maybe that's just me, but in a nutshell, I wouldn't be sorry to see Ryan go because I just don't have that much of an emotional attachment to him. Casey Link, the remnants read the Doctor's fears. In the episode The God Complex, people's biggest fears show up in a room. Was the Timeless Child in that room when he opened it? I would have loved that if that was the case. However, unfortunately, we've already had the answer to this. Matt Smith's final episode, The Time of the Doctor, revealed it to be the cracks in space and time for some reason. Let's not go into it because I'm not exactly happy that that's the route Stephen Moffat chose to go down. But yeah, I don't think it's the Timeless Child. And also, it can't really be the Timeless Child because, as the Remnant said, the Doctor has forgotten about this Timeless Child, supposedly. Geo makes a very interesting point here. Yaz saying reverse the polarity was a bit cringy. Like when a new friend quotes an inside joke you've had long before they came. Yes. And I think that's why I wasn't particularly impressed when that line was said. I didn't find it funny. I didn't think it was cringy, admittedly. Though, having read your message now, Gio, I do agree with you. Yeah. I don't see how Yaz would know to suggest that. And really, that line was only written for the fans. So, that moment isn't the best, really. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, I gotta know, how would you rate this episode on the emotion factor when it came to the whole Graham and Grace reunion thing? Do you think Ryan would have reacted differently had he been there? Very good questions, Tia Martin. You always do put me on the spot. Well, at the very least, the episode was very emotional, so I'll give it that. In all honesty, I felt like it could have done more with the emotion, and this links back to what I was saying at the very start of this video. I felt like we should have had more scenes with Graham and Grace together, really so that the audience could build up more of a connection with this fake Grace, and believe her to be the real Grace some more. Yeah, and just other minor things. I think if I was writing the episode, yes, it would be a much poorer episode if I wrote it, but I think I would have tried to do more with the emotion. And I think especially in the scene where Graham ultimately decides to leave Graham leaves himself behind. The scene where Graham decides to leave Grace in this mirror world, I think that could have been written and directed differently. I don't know how exactly. I couldn't put it into words. But what we got, I was a bit let down with, to be honest. Yeah, so I don't know what you want in answer to that emotion factor question. But in a nutshell, I thought it was very emotional, but I would have liked more emotion because I'm a sucker for emotional drama. And then the second question, how do you think Ryan would have reacted? Well, the honest answer is I have no idea, and sadly we'll never find out. What I like to think, though, is that Ryan wouldn't have been so quick to... Well, Graham wasn't quick to leave, let me just clarify that. But I mean, Ryan would have been more argumentative, I think, and more insistent on Grace coming with them. But yeah, the fact is, we'll never know, because that's not what happened in the episode. 16 minutes behind, so I'm getting there. Mr. Dragon Man, let me finish that if a time lady is in the next episode, I'm putting my money on it being the Rani. We'll have to wait and see. Mr. Dragon Man was also questioning life when the talking frog came on. Clint Waltman thinks there's no way the Rani can come back. 2's enough. Don't really get that. So Clint has said 2's enough, last of the Time Lords, and the Rani isn't a good enough story source to make an exception. I think Clint is getting at how we've already got the Doctor and the Master being the last 2 Time Lords, and we don't need a third one. But I don't know. Really, I don't have that many opinions on the Rani because I've yet to see the episodes that she's in. So I don't mind if she comes back. I don't mind if she doesn't come back. I'm just open to anything, really. Oh, I'm catching up. Thank God. Dave H, are you happy about how many deaths in the episode? Do you count fake Grace as a death? Yes, so long-time viewers of my live discussions will know that something that I look out for in every episode is what I call the minimum death quota, I think. I forget the exact terminology we came up with for it. But essentially, every episode, I like there to be at least 3 deaths. But I don't mind it if the odd episode deviates from that, because I can appreciate not every episode has to have characters dying. This episode, really, the only deaths I count are... I've completely forgotten his name. Ribbons. And that was it. I don't really count the fake characters. So it didn't meet my death quota. But I don't mind, because the episode was still interesting without it. Yes, I felt like there wasn't much of a threat. And that usually comes with an episode that doesn't have many deaths. But I think I'm just so happy they had a mirror universe in this story that I'm willing to forgive the episode for quite a lot. But any other episode, I would come down on a lot harder, I think. Clint Waltman will be disappointed if the Timeless Child is someone we've met before, e.g. Susan. I'd like it to be a new entity. What do you think, Dr. Blue? Completely agree, Clint. Yeah, as I've mentioned in many videos, and even in this one, I would love it to be a secret sibling for the Doctor. Yeah, that's the only idea I've had so far, and really it's the only one that I think I'll be interested in. But hopefully, once we get the answer to that question, it will still be really interesting, even if it's not a secret sibling. But yes, I would be disappointed if it was Susan. I would be disappointed if it's a character we've seen before. Yeah, because it would just seem like an excuse to bring a character back. And don't get me wrong, I would love characters to return, but not in the context of this series arc of the Timeless Child. Philip Hawkins is a little tired of the creature from Time Lord folktales / legends trope. Shame they used it again here. Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. And I think that's another reason I didn't really like it when the Doctor said, oh, I've got 7 grandmothers and it was my 5th grandmother that told me this story. I think, yeah, well, there was a lot of things I didn't like about that. I didn't like how the Doctor's got 7 grandmothers. I never really liked finding out much about the Doctor's backstory, as I do believe it should be kept hidden. And as you said, Philip, the fact that it's another monster that's from Time Lord folklore, yeah, it's difficult to put into words. It's just, I think for me, I find it more interesting if the Doctor is discovering a brand new creature that she doesn't know about. But that's just me, to each their own. Right, am I catching up? Yes, I am. Okay. I'll be wrapping up very soon, guys. So final chance to vote in the polls if you haven't already done so, because I will be doing a final rundown of the results. Jack Parry, thanks for making another great live stream. Pleasure. Have you ever thought of making Doctor Who ranking videos? I enjoy the Council of Geeks type ranking videos. Would you be interested in doing them? Yes, I would. And hopefully, in the new year, I may start to delve into those types of videos. Dash Maniac, Dr. Blue, what are your opinions on if River Song comes back? Personally, I wouldn't mind it because River Song is one of my favourite Doctor Who companions. This is a very easy question to answer for me. I would be furious if River Song came back. Not going to lie here or beat around the bush. Don't get me wrong, I do like River Song as a character. Well, for the most part, I do. There's a couple of episodes in Series 6 where I really don't like her, but we won't get into that here. But the reason I don't want her to come back is A, she's already had loads of exits, and B, her story's finished. We've seen everything. You could argue her whole story arc was leading to that night on Darillium. And for a long time, I thought we would never see it, because back in 2011, I think, it was mentioned in a mini-sode, and in my eyes, I took that as being Stephen Moffat's canon. I'm struggling to find the word for it here. I basically took that mini-sode to be the canon time in River Song's life that they were going to go to Darillium. So I was really shocked when we got it in The Husbands of River Song. And yeah, ultimately, it was just such a brilliant ending. Ending on that fabulous score from Murray Gold with the singing towers. And obviously, River spends 24 years with the Doctor at that point. I think it would be completely pointless to bring her back after that. I think there's no reason for it. And it just ruins her exit, in my eyes. So that is my long-winded thought on bringing River back. Mr. Dragon Man, rest your throat. Yeah, I do need to rest my throat, so I will be wrapping up very quickly. Cool. Right. So, as ever, thank you very much, guys, for your messages. Just before wrapping up, I'm going to do a final rundown of the polls. feel free to stick around for it, but you really don't have to. Okay, so let's see how much things have changed. How do you rate the episode? The winner with 43% is people loving it. Then it's people liking it with 34%. Then in joint third place, it's people not liking the episode or hating it with 8%. And then in last place, it's people thinking the episode is okay. So I'm glad people loved the episode, mostly. That's a good sign. Which non-Chibnall story is your favourite? Most people seem to agree with me, and they put Rosa. That won with 38% of the vote. Then it's Kablam with 33%. Then in joint third place, it's The Witchfinders and It Takes You Away with 11%. Then in last place, it's Demons of the Punjab with 5%. That's slightly different from how I would rank them. I think at this moment in time, I would do Rosa, Kablam, It Takes You Away, Demons of the Punjab, and then The Witchfinders. But I can't argue with what you guys have voted for. Which Series 11 present day story is the best? The winner is It Takes You Away with 50% of the vote. Then it's The Woman Who Fell to Earth with 44%. And then with just 5% of the vote, it's Arachnids in the UK. And then the final question, which episode 9 is your favourite? I'm very happy to see that the winner here is Flatline, because as I mentioned right at the start of this video, I absolutely adore that episode. So it's nice that many of you guys like it as well. So that got 36%. Then it was It Takes You Away with 26%. Then Hide with 21%. Then Night Terrors with 15%. And no one has voted for Empress of Mars, which is really interesting. So, I'll quickly turn on the chat to see if I missed anything important. Oh, okay, I'll end on this very interesting question from Dash Maniac. If you had to choose one writer this series to come back, which one would you choose now that we have seen them all? I would choose the writer of Kablan. That is such a good question, Dash Maniac, so thank you for that. It's a difficult one to answer because all the guest writers have been good this year. I wouldn't necessarily pick the one who wrote The Witchfinders, purely because I found that episode quite boring. I think I combined the words boring and dull there to make dull. Thank God it didn't turn into a swear word. But yeah, no, I think either Mallory Blackman, who co-wrote Rosa, Pete McTiff, I think, who wrote Kablam, or Ed Heim, who wrote this week's. I think it's got to be Mallory Blackman because I loved Rosa so much, but I would be happy for any of the guest writers to return next year. So on that note, thank you very much guys for watching this video, and I will see you next week for the final live discussion of the Series 11 finale. Farewell!